What did the shoes look like when you had them?
They were 5.5 Inez pumps covered with burgundy pot de soie fabric. The bows were made by the leather department at MGM. When the shoes were stolen, they found one of the sequins on the floor. People have told me that your shoes are not only the most famous, they're the most infamous pair of ruby slippers. That's quite a distinction.
What would the shoes be worth today?
A lot.
A lot.
Ruby slippers are definitely the most famous shoes in the world.
Let's open the bid at $1,550,000. Anybody at 2.4, 24?
I mean, you can say you have a Rembrandt and people say that's nice, but you can say you have the ruby slippers and everybody you meet is going to want to see the damn shoes.
$10 million. You want to just count by millions? It's fine with me.
I mean, I would classify them as the Holy Grail.
That is the Rolls Royce.
$18 million. Historic piece. Part of our American culture.
They were stolen.
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 $22 million. Anybody else?
I said, why? Why did they take them? I'd love to spit them in the eye.
Fair warning now. I'm at $25 million.
The real gem behind all of this is the story of where they've been.
Okay, so we're on the southern part of Grand Rapids here, where Walmart put up their big box store here. And so we're gonna turn down River Road here at the new Casey's General Store. The Wizard of Oz, Judy Garland, and the Red Ruby Slippers put Grand Rapids on the map a long time ago. As everybody says, Judy Garland's from Grand Rapids? Oh yeah.
It's Grand Rapids, Minnesota, not Grand Rapids, Michigan.
We have the Judy Garland Historic House, which is lovingly restored.
Growing up, Grand Rapids was a very quiet town. Grand Rapids now is more hustle and bustle. The traffic drives me up the wall.
We're in the paper industry, we're in the tourist industry, and we're in the taconite industry. And we've got enough pure ore to cover the United States for 100 years.
Grand Rapids is a small community, 10,000 people. We celebrate victories for people, however it might be, and she's just a very historical figure, and people latch onto that.
The Wizard of Oz and Judy Garland and the whole thing has brought very famous people to our community. Pierce Pincott from Perfect Strangers, remember that? Her family was instrumental in a lot of things in the community. It's amazing to me the city of Grand Rapids didn't put the Red Ruby Slippers on our water towers. The shoes were stolen, and we haven't solved it yet.
Someone with enough brains to not get caught stole the slippers.
I don't think that we're hated because of it, but we've got some egg on our face as a department. We like solving crimes and closing cases, but this one is exciting because it's a big deal. And the story of the shoes, it's not whether they're found or not, it's finding out who did it and why and where they're at and what happened to them.
In 2018, I set out on a journey when I heard about the annual Judy Garland Festival in Grand Rapids. That's when I met Sergeant Stein to talk to him about the theft.
It's our white whale. I was raised here, I grew up here, no place like home.
Welcome to the land of Oz.
The Judy Garland Festival began 40 years ago in 1979.
One of the great pleasures of coming to this festival is to be with people who sit there and want to be reminded of the joy of Judy Garland.
It was during the 2005 festival when the ruby slippers, estimated to be worth around $1 million, were swiped. I'm a true crime TV producer from Minnesota, and my team and I thought the stolen slippers would make a good show. We just didn't know then how good.
Lots of Judy fans and lots of people come out of the woodwork.
The hat is all the buttons from the Grand Rapids Judy Garland Festival.
If ever, oh, ever a wisdom there was the Wizard of Oz is one because behind you.
Everyone around town wanted to know who stole the shoes.
It is quite the mystery. We still don't know.
As for my festival adventure, it was very clear that I was definitely not in Kansas anymore.
Judy Garland's family moved to Grand Rapids in 1914 to run a movie theater. They had 3 girls, and the third child was Frances Ethel Gum, who became Judy Garland.
The Gum family actually lived here for 12 years, so from 1914 to 1926. They were all involved in performing. Mom and Dad would play the piano, the girls would rehearse on the little landing on the stairs. Judy started performing at 2½.
She sang Jingle Bells at her dad's theater one Christmas, and the audience was just awestruck. She kept singing it over and over, and they said, "Baby, get off," they yelled from the wings, and she said, "But I like it." Her dad had to throw her over his shoulder and take her off.
They wanted to go to California. They wanted to manifest these ambitions they had for the girls.
She turned out to be one of the biggest movie stars of all time.
A Hollywood star who always remembered her hometown, said it was the only normal, carefree time my family ever had was in Grand Rapids, Minnesota.
France has the Mona Lisa. We have Judy Garland and the Wizard of Oz.
We have the largest Judy Garland Wizard of Oz collection in the world. We have Dorothy's dress from the Wizard of Oz. We have a Winky spear, the Winky guards that guarded the witch's castle.
We have the carriage from the Scene with the Rainbow Horse.
This is a first edition Wizard of Oz book. One of 10,000, the first truly American fairy tale.
It is a great story by Frank Baum. Baum wrote a very simple children's parable about the journey and whom you meet on the journey, and to look inside for what it is you think you need, because it's there, you just have to tap into it. Walk into a room by accident where the Wizard of Oz is on, and you are drawn to it. It is like this motion picture fireplace that just pulls you in.
Most people don't know that the 1939 film was not the first film adaptation of The Wizard of Oz. It was actually made as a silent film in 1910. It's a silent film first, an animated film, and finally in 1939, this major musical motion picture that we know today.
I love the part where it went from black and white to color, and it was just like, oh, how cool is that?
People would stand up and clap and cheer when that happened in the film. Many people think that The Wizard of Oz was the first color film, and it actually wasn't. I mean, the Technicolor process had been around for many years before that, and even before that, there were hand-tinted and toned films.
One of the great things about Judy Garland to me has always been the fact that she came out on stage and it was like putting her arms around the audience. It was always, come along with me, enjoy this.
It's way bigger than a movie. It's a way of life, it's a way of thinking, and we all watch The Wizard of Oz. It's a great movie.
When Judy sings Somewhere Over the Rainbow, that has always melted my heart.
Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high.
A collector named Michael Shaw, who owned an extremely rare pair of screen-worn ruby slippers, began loaning them to the museum in 1989 to display during the festival.
The slippers were in Grand Rapids 4 times. The last time, the 4th time, was in 2005.
We had tremendous turnout, and then the theft happened.
The Judy Garland Museum in Grand Rapids suffered a major loss when a pair of Dorothy's ruby red slippers from The Wizard of Oz were stolen.
I think some of you have heard about this. The famous pair that Judy Garland wore in The Wizard of Oz were stolen from a museum. Oh, for God's sake, Andy.
What makes the ruby slippers so valuable is not necessarily what they are, but what they represent. They were in such beautiful, good condition when I got them. For years, I was able to bring them around the country, show them to people.
I will never forget the day I met Michael Shaw and, knocking on the door of his apartment, opening the door, and it was like I was in a movie museum. He had one of Dorothy's dresses, he had the Wicked Witch's hat, he had a Maltese Falcon prop from Humphrey Bogart's 1941 film noir. He had the 10 Commandments from the famous Charlton Heston film. But the slippers were his biggest treasure.
The shoes. Now, I was told about, may I hold one?
Please, just be careful. These are fish scale sequins, and the color will come off with moisture on your hand. These are the ruby slippers.
This is just true love for you, isn't
Absolutely.
There are at least 4 pairs of slippers that we know for a fact Judy wore in the film.
If you notice, the bottoms are padded, and that's to protect the yellow brick road, which was made out of plywood.
They've created several pairs because you're going to tromp around, sequins can go flying. She's on the yellow brick road, she's dancing, she's singing.
1 pair is with a private collector, 1 is at the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures, and 1 is at the Smithsonian.
They've been on display almost continuously since 1979, and that's because people demand them. We think that at least 100 million people over the years have come to see the ruby slippers.
The 4th known pair, which Michael loaned to the Judy Garland Museum, was widely considered the most valuable because it was Judy's primary set of shoes.
They were 5.5 inch pumps covered with burgundy pot de soie fabric.
He was really driven by this idea that he could share them with people and share the movie magic.
I got a call, would I be willing to bring the shoes for the Judy Garland Festival? I said, sure.
To have that pair of shoes, what was that like?
Well, it was thrilling. It was magical. My entire family has been in show business. I started as a kid. I was 7 and started to get my name established in the industry. MGM was celebrating their 25th anniversary, and they were showing their movies in the MGM Theater. I was invited, and that was the first place that I saw The Wizard of Oz. And I discovered who was sitting there was Judy Garland.
Miss Judy Garland.
She was such a wonderful, wonderful human being.
This is her actual dress.
You bet your bippy.
Yeah, Judy Garland. Wow, what's the catalog number of the...
That's the production number. The shoes never left, my hands until they were put on display. These are, I would say, the most sought-after famous piece of memorabilia in the world. This is the way my generosity was repaid, by having them stolen. And where were they stolen? Out of the Judy Garland Museum in Grand Rapids, Minnesota.
It was the day after Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans.
Winds at last check are now sustained at 175 miles per hour. That is an enormous storm.
We were watching the news, and it was just a little ticker across the bottom saying, the ruby slippers have been stolen. I grew up near Grand Rapids, Minnesota, and I wrote 2 books fictionalizing the theft of the ruby slippers. I just thought it was a joke, and that would be something people would do up there.
Kathy Johnson was scheduled to open up that Sunday morning, August 28th. I had just gotten out of the shower, and the phone rang.
They're gone! When I heard from John, the first thing I did is sit down because I thought I was going to fall down. So I couldn't believe it. Truthfully, we cried. Grand Rapids is a great place to be, and Minnesota is Minnesota nice.
I had to make the call to Michael Shaw. He wasn't really that upset.
I became physically ill, and I was ill for at least 3 or 4 days. I couldn't eat. I mean, 35 years I had those wonderful shoes. They had brought so much happiness and joy.
One of the most recognizable pair of shoes in motion picture history is MIA. They are one of 4 original pairs worn by Garland in the 1939 classic The Wizard of Oz.
And we're all like, oh my God, who has the ruby slippers? Are they really gone? Did someone just hide them?
The slippers are gone. Where are the slippers? All kinds of really good rumors.
The ruby slippers, what have you done with them? Give them back to me or I'll... It's too late.
I had one little girl call and say, I know where the shoes are. They're under my house.
I came up with this ridiculous scenario of some obsessed collector having the shoes down in the cellar on an altar. He would put on his size 92 blue and white gingham and put on artificial braids and go down and light candles in front of the shoes. I'd love to spit them in the eye. I mean, it just, that question, I said, why? Why? Why did they take them?
That's probably one of the biggest heists of all time.
Grand Rapids Police started working on it right away. From everything I have learned about the investigation, it was not done well.
I have never seen such Mickey Mouse police work or investigating it, so I felt like I was in Hooterville and I'm dealing with Barney Fife.
I'd made sure there's a lot more security there than there was. I mean, a piece of plexiglass? Just I figured, we'll find them in a short time. Somebody will talk.
At first, really, it was like they're a pair of shoes. Up in the jail, and they had this piece of paper with the Scarecrow, the Lion, the Tin Man, and Dorothy, and the faces of all the officers on them transposed. That worked that night when they were stolen. Brian right now is an investigator for the Grand Rapids Police Department, and I have assigned him the case.
I'm the 5th investigator that's worked on this case. So August 28th, 2005, at some point somebody broke in and stole the slippers. This was the door that the entry was made. There was glass found on the floor here in the hallway. If we come in here to the main room, this is where the slippers were being displayed at. The thieves came in here and they smashed the plexiglass case and they took the slippers. We processed the crime scene, obviously collected glass shards and pieces that were found on the floor. We looked for any fingerprints.
One sequin was found at the scene. There were no fingerprints. It was kind of the perfect crime.
We put out a nationwide, they call it a bolo, to be on the lookout for.
It could be in the leg of the pink elephant, which is famous around here.
I think they dumped them in the bottom of a mine pit, which we have many around here.
Tioga Pit's about 225 feet on average deep.
There's this one tip where a man is looking at homes for sale online when he sees a pair of ruby slippers in somebody's listing.
And he goes, they looked real. I found out who owns the property. This gentleman happens to own a company called Startifacts. It is a celebrity memorabilia company that sells authentic celebrity items. They bought O.J. Simpson's white Ford Bronco when it finally was released as evidence. So my mind was turning.
Police sent in cops posing as a husband and wife to investigate.
One of them was checking out the kitchen with the real estate agent. The other one was, snapping pictures of all the ruby slippers. They were not the authentic slippers. Fun as heck, though. You got to be creative when you're doing these types of investigations.
At the beginning, it did feel like everybody was a suspect.
We didn't take them, we tell you. We didn't take them. We didn't take them.
What happened? Did somebody forget something? Was something overlooked? Was this an inside job?
A reward has just been offered for $1 million.
The reward will be given to anyone who can either prove where the slippers are or supply them to the Grand Rapids Police.
Well, it was a blemish, a tarnish. No museum director wants a major theft at their museum. We did offer precautionary measures. We asked U.S. Bank in town to donate a safe. We could slip them out of the case, put them in the safe each night. And we asked Michael Shaw, he would not agree to having them handled every day.
And I said, well, look, you know, the delicacy of the shoes and the fact that you've got all the security makes this very improbable. I thought the place was completely secure.
There's supposed to have been an alarm that you know, was on that door. Kel said, we shut it off. And I said, you shut the alarm off?
We had children going out our emergency exit doors.
He said, we forgot to turn it back on. Okay, so that explained that.
In hindsight, we should have had a video monitor on them 24 hours a day that was taping.
As we dug in, we found out there was another alarm besides the one on the door. A motion sensor like this one that should have gone off even if the door alarm didn't. Police told me that was important for one very good reason.
As you come through the door up high, you would have to hug the wall from the time you entered the building through that door all the way to the door that led to where the slippers were kept. That gives me a clue that somebody had been in there and knew that alarm was up there. No doubt in my mind somebody cased it out. How would they know to hug the wall?
For a while, they thought that it might be an insurance scam.
The ruby slippers were the most expensive item the museum ever had to insure. And if you need insurance in Grand Rapids, you need Bob Kushel.
There's been many, many days that I wish that I'd have never heard of the ruby slippers. The owner wanted $1 million policy.
The theory was that Michael Shaw had paid somebody to steal them, and then he would get to collect all that insurance money.
It was infuriating to think that people that I would, and some of the cockamamie stories that I heard about, I had nothing to do with it.
Michael never filed a lawsuit against the museum or me, but the insurance company filed a lawsuit against me personally.
The insurance company, which held the policy on the shoes, argued they shouldn't have to cover the loss since the museum shut off the door alarm and allegedly didn't have functioning motion detectors or video surveillance.
As the writing agent of the slippers, I got brought into the lawsuit. The commission on that sale was less than $100. It was horrible. Almost cost me my agency. We were just part of the scrap heap.
Eventually, the lawsuit was settled out of court.
At the end, the insurance company agreed to pay Michael Shaw $800 and some thousand.
I mean, only stupid, vindictive people would try to, you know, implicate me. So now I'm starting to get a little bit angry and I'd like to cool down.
I don't think he had anything to do with their disappearance.
Funny thing about it is The Wizard of Oz is one of my favorite shows since I've been a kid. To this day, I watch it every time it's on TV. But every time I look at those ruby slippers, I guess I see dollar signs.
It's easy to think we're in Minnesota, and you've maybe heard about Minnesota Nice and all that. Who here would do this? But these shoes were valuable, and everybody knew it.
Making The Wizard of Oz, the idea was that Judy would have magic shoes.
These are, and probably always will be, the most famous pair of shoes in the world. I mean, I would classify them as the Holy Grail. Anything to do with Judy Garland is going to be the most important. Dorothy's dress recently sold for around $1.3 million, but other items, you know, that have sold, some of the Munchkin costumes, you know, those can garner 40, 50, 60,000 at times.
So we're here in the Entertainment Collection Storage Room at the American History Museum here at the Smithsonian, and this is the original hat from the Scarecrow costume worn by Ray Bolger in The Wizard of Oz. This is the rest. You can see how it was made here, this sort of ratty pair of pants, and when he would wear it, he would pack it out with straw. And so we actually got some of the original straw as well. Gilbert Adrian was one of MGM's premier costume designers and really of the entire classic period of Hollywood film. Among the costumes that he's best known for the film are the ruby slippers themselves. Many people don't realize that the slippers were originally silver. You see here it says silver shoes, and this is before they had changed them to ruby.
So they had to experiment at Technicolor to find a shade of red that would photograph ruby, and they found that burgundy photographed a beautiful ruby red, and so actually they're the burgundy shoes.
I mean, you can say you have a Rembrandt and people say that's nice, but you can say you have the ruby slippers and everybody you meet is going to want to see the damn shoes.
There is a black market for these artifacts. I mean, there are individuals that will sell items or try to sell items on the black market, and usually for a reduced price, especially if they're stolen. They don't have anything invested in them, so they're willing to take a lower price.
The theft of art, antiquities, and memorabilia today is a billion-dollar business, and the FBI's Art Crime Division is who monitors that. Props are valuable. In legitimate sales, things like Audrey Hepburn's little black dress, the Saturday Night Fever dance floor, and the Cowardly Lion suit have all fetched around $1 million or more. But movie props and costumes weren't always valuable.
I don't think anybody, back then cared about the slippers after the film was made. Nobody had the foresight that these items were going to someday be worth huge, millions of dollars.
What turned the entire story around and the word memorabilia was created was the MGM auction in 1970. They contracted with the David Weiss Auction Company to sell everything but the main lot itself.
$15,000. I'm at third and last call. Are you all through? Fair warning. And they are sold. The bidder's number, please.
Costumes, set pieces, props, everything just went wholesale. Racks of Munchkin costumes.
Whatever they could move, the showboat from the showboat.
One of the people that was brought in to help organize the auction was a man named Kent Warner. Kent Warner was a longtime costumer in Hollywood and one of the few people who really understood the value of Hollywood costumes at that moment in history. One of the major objects that he wanted to find was the ruby slippers. And so he was searching everywhere on the lot, and there's an apocryphal story that goes that he kind of climbed up a ladder and, looked ahead, and there was a beam of light coming in, setting the ruby slippers ablaze with the sequins glowing everywhere. And he knew at that moment, he'd found them.
Somebody said that he saw the glint of a sequin. No. They were on regular shoe racks, and that's where he found them.
It's hard to know which of these stories is true or even if either is true. Kent Warner passed away in 1984, and I think the real truth died with him.
I was in the right place at the right time, and I worked out a deal with him for the shoes, the dress, the witch's hat, a few other things. When I saw the shoes, and I'm not lying to you, Maria, I started to cry.
It's reported that Shaw was able to get his screen-used pair of Judy's rubies for just $2,500.
They were called the traveling pair for many years because he would take them to conventions, take them to malls.
It's so ironic that they're called the traveling slippers because they've been traveling for almost 13 years now. That's the true story. Where have the slippers been? Who took them? Why?
The biggest thing that ever happened to our museum was getting the slippers stolen.
This is our #1 suspect. Yes, yes.
Ran into someone who wanted to work with law enforcement, and they were in a little bit of trouble. I asked if they knew, any dead bodies were stolen vehicles, could buy drugs, or some ruby slippers. And this person said, "That's funny you ask. I seen them 2 days ago." Supposedly, these slippers were being housed in a little structure on a property north of Grand Rapids. So the area where we're at is probably 15 to 20 feet from this generator. And they were actually working on this generator. And this informant says that's exactly where we have to go. So I'm trying to formulate, how can I get these people away from the generator? It was a good hour and a half, 2 hours goes by. We're laying down in the woods, in the wood line, in the weeds, batting mosquitoes. And I recognize this is not happening soon enough. I reapply for a night-capped warrant. I decided the best sneak attack is probably just a direct attack. I walked right up the driveway, talked to the homeowner, and I said, "I'm looking for the ruby slippers." He says to me, "Well, why didn't you just come knock on my door? I got them in the house." We get to a back bedroom. He pulls out this green box. It's got a green bow on it. And before he hands it to me, he tells me, he goes, "You're not gonna believe it when you see it. I bought these at a garage sale." I knew very quickly that these were not the stolen ruby slippers that we were looking for. If you look on the back, you know, made in China, so.
I spent a lot of time in 2018 looking for the real ruby slippers, which was kind of a strange pastime. But then I found out I might not be the only one looking for the shoes. Our team found some classified ads that ran in the Los Angeles Times. I don't know if that has to do with the ruby slippers that are stolen or some other pair of ruby slippers, but the timing seems really curious to us. We traced the number back. It came back to witch, comma, wicked. The Wicked Witch. The number seems like a Chicago number, so maybe the Wicked Witch isn't in the West as far as we thought she was.
Your call has been forwarded to an automated voice messaging system.
My name is Maria, and my last name is Oz, not O-Z, but A-W-E-S. All right, thanks a lot. We tracked down the Wicked Witch, not in a castle on the other side of the Enchanted Forest, but a suburban home outside Chicago.
I'm Randy Struthers, and I am a lifelong Wizard of Oz fan, but some people may know me as the Wicked Witch. I, for a long time, have been posting classified ads looking for shoes from the Wizard of Oz. And so at one point during that research, I had the brilliant idea to change my name to Wicked Witch. So when I was calling people associated with it, they might get a laugh out of it or maybe get scared and give me more information. Currently, I'm thinking that the shoes may have been stolen by someone who was paid to do it, by someone local. The tips that I received do kind of match up with that being the case.
Grand Rapids Police Department thought the thief was local too. Randy knew more about Dorothy's slippers than anybody I had ever met. He creates high-end replicas that are hard to tell apart from the real slippers.
I started making them when I was probably 11 or 12. I have a hard time picking a favorite character in the movie, but I think I most identify with the Wicked Witch, only because how badly she wanted the shoes. There is a relatively large market for it, which I think surprises a lot of people. It's something I enjoy doing. The average price usually would run about $3,000 for an age style. One of my brother's friends, he's like, you're like the best person in the world making these shoes. You've had people crying. They mean a lot. This is the closest they're ever going to get to having a pair, and it's obviously important to them.
I thought I was really onto something when I found those ads.
I wish it had been exactly what you hoped for.
The so-called Wicked Witch, Randy Struthers, wasn't the only one who wondered if the theft was part of something bigger. Grand Rapids police did too, and so did I. Something much more nefarious than your small-town smash and grab.
There is an individual that I reached out to for help to try to talk to individuals that wouldn't talk to me. He has connections with so many people, and it's amazing the information he can get. I can reach out to him and see if he'd be willing to talk to you, but my concern is the work he's done for me could put him in danger. There's people around here that don't take kindly to snitches.
The informant agreed to talk to me if we disguised his voice and filmed him in shadow, in an old speakeasy tunnel, in an antique shop. How did you get involved in looking into that case?
Well, my officers that I trust got a hold of me and asked me to do some digging. And I'm allowed to move in and out of dangerous circles.
How many people have you talked to about this?
Say anywhere between 50 and 75 people. It ranges from grandma and grandpa down the street to the most dangerous and scariest people on the planet. Whoever grabbed them, and they know they were worth money.
Is this a case of a small town theft, or is this a theft that happened in a small town that's connected to something bigger?
I think it's connected to something way bigger. And basically, if they dig too far into it, I think they're gonna open up a can of worms that they're just not gonna wanna leave open. They're gonna wanna shut it. Just be done with it, just walk away, because it's gonna get real. I think you're on the right path, and you know, there's other things that might be involved. Just, you know, be careful.
Because this idea of bigger organized crime, black market, that does seem like what you think this is really all about.
Yes.
At this point in the investigation, I wasn't really sure where things were going to go. But then we got our hands on something we weren't really supposed to have. Search warrants are public information, usually.
And we saw another search warrant about a call you got. I think you took the call last summer. Tell me about that.
Which call is that?
This is the former Secret Service guy.
Where were the suits?
Thought this was you.
It turns out that our production team had uncovered a search warrant that mistakenly had not been sealed. This was not a cold case at all.
That has to stay confidential, but we will give you the first information. We'll give you the story when it happens. The court's messed up because we sealed that document, but I'll tell you, you cannot say anything because the FBI is huge into them. No, the second we find the shoes, as long as you keep it quiet, we will call you first.
Shortly after getting back to Minneapolis from Grand Rapids, we did get a phone call from Investigator Matson and Sergeant Stein, and they put everything in perspective.
This is almost a 13-year investigation, and we are on the cusp of potentially solving this case. I mean, I just have to be 100% assured that anything on your guys' end is not going to be disclosed.
We agreed to keep the contents of the search warrant quiet, not because we had to, but because I wanted to, hoping it would help keep us on the inside track of this investigation if it broke open.
You're the only ones holding the information we're currently on, so you're in a unique spot. You guys can be the exclusive as far as I'm concerned.
The search warrant we found was based on a tip that came in on July 11th, 2017. A retired Secret Service agent living in Florida had called investigators sniffing around to see if there was still a reward being offered for the return of the shoes. His name was Michael Insabella, and decades ago, he served on President Ronald Reagan's detail. That to me seemed like he was pretty credible. According to the warrant, an informant, I'd call a middleman, approached Insabella to see if he could help with a plan to exchange the shoes for reward money. Did this guy on the phone tell you who the middleman was then?
No,
right?
never. He said he would not divulge that identity, is what he told me. So, what we were told was, number one, the holder of the slippers wanted to do the right thing, and on the successful exchange of the slippers for any reward monies would give us the story of who stole them and where they've been.
The thief was not identified, and neither was whoever had the shoes, who was described as a heavy hitter with organized crime ties, which cast a little Scorsese-like sheen over this whole thing.
I wondered about so many things, like who are these people, who are they affiliated with? I didn't really know where this was gonna lead at the time. We're not gonna just give anyone money without knowing their real slippers, the slippers. So we asked for proof of life. We need some kind of evidence, some kind of proof of life that they exist. I did receive photographs.
I thought that is the best looking real shoes we've ever seen. And so then I got excited, I can tell you that much.
The pictures aren't great. You know, we felt like, okay, we're probably on the right trail here.
By this time, the $1 million reward was long gone. The only reward still in effect was a $200,000 one from the company that had insured the shoes.
Wasn't enough. In fact, it was told that for that amount, these shoes could go missing for another 10 years or sold.
Be destroyed?
Or destroyed. They weren't happy with law enforcement involvement, and they were not happy with the money that was being offered as a reward.
They were disappointed the $1 million reward wasn't still going.
Right.
So it almost sounds like they're trying to somehow blackmail you guys, kind of like they're trying to extort money from someone.
It does sound like it.
Now police wondered if there was not just the potential for theft charges, but maybe extortion charges.
Even though I was told they want to do the right thing, the scope of the investigation has now turned. It's been 12 years. Our most important goal is to recover the ruby slippers. I recognize that we're reaching outside of the scope of my jurisdiction. That's when I contacted the Federal Bureau of Investigation. They have an art crimes team. So we work together to formulate what our next moves are going to be, how we're going to proceed. It took until July of 2018 to get this plan into place.
When the FBI came on board, so did the U.S. Attorney's Office in North Dakota. I had joked that this case had some things in common with the movie Fargo. Now I was headed to Fargo for real. Which, by the way, Fargo is not in Minnesota, and a lot of people still think it is.
My name is Matthew Greenlee. I'm an assistant U.S. attorney. We work together closely with the FBI throughout the case, from their involvement forward.
Because of a conflict of interest, the case was being prosecuted by our neighbors to the northwest.
All of the various angles and intrigue associated with the case, I thought it was fascinating. And so I was looking at theft of an object of cultural heritage. And one of the benefits of that charge is that it carries a 20-year statute of limitations. The people with the slippers were negotiating.
The middleman with the slippers thought he was only dealing with the insurance company. But he was wrong.
They did not know they were talking to the FBI or Grand Rapids Police Department.
And they ultimately settled on $400,000 payment.
The holder of the slippers proposed a time frame that we could meet and told us to choose the location.
It took place at an art gallery in Minneapolis on July 10th, 2018. Everything was coordinated by the FBI, insurance employees present, undercover FBI agents.
Investigator Matson and the FBI's special agent in charge of the case were next door monitoring the whole thing with headphones on.
It really happened exactly as planned, to a T.
Almost exactly a year to the day since Michael Insabella had called in the tip, in walks the middleman. It's a man named Joe Friedberg, who just happens to be Minnesota's most famous criminal defense attorney.
Thanks.
He represented a lot of hardcore criminals and even people said to have ties to the mafia.
I have never found anybody in all these years that didn't have some redeeming characteristics.
He also represented celebrities like Randy Moss, who once struck a traffic cop with his car on a busy street. He was able to get him off with no jail time as part of a plea to just 2 minor charges.
Mr. Friedberg showed up. He had the ruby slippers in hand. He had them in cloth shoe bags.
The insurance reps were there to take a quick look to decide if they appeared authentic, which they did.
He was provided an actual cashier's check for $400,000. He actually left them while he went to the restroom. And the FBI had considered just grabbing them right at that point. When he returned, the undercover FBI agents had been replaced by the actual detectives in the case, and they interviewed Mr. Friedberg.
I wanted to know how he got brought into this and how he knew the tipster Michael Insabella.
It appears they'd met when they were both living in Florida. Perhaps they were in the same condo or the same neighborhood.
As Insabella's son-in-law tells it in a book that he wrote, back in 2017, the two were discussing celebrities that Insabella had worked security for once he left the Secret Service. That's when Liza Minnelli, Judy Garland's daughter, came up. They talk about that for a while, and then supposedly that's when Friedberg pipes up that he has access to Judy's stolen ruby slippers. He wants to help the person who has them get the reward money for them. And then he says, hey, does Insabella want to help him get those back?
I believe Mr. Insabella was recruited to remove the actors, one step further away from the investigation.
I'm listening on an earpiece. I can hear the conversation. Immediately says, but I can tell you who did the burglary.
Mr. Friedberg had said that Kent Anderson planned the theft of the ruby slippers.
Suddenly, this is now a new player in the mix. Kent Anderson was a well-known thief in what's called a fence, which is someone who buys and sells stolen goods. Friedberg had represented him in the past. Kent's brother was Louis Anderson, a comedian from Minnesota who would talk about his infamous brother in his shows.
I like Louis Anderson.
I'm not the first celebrity in our house. My brother, the safecracker, he was the first celebrity.
While he said Anderson was behind the operation, Friedberg insisted he didn't know who actually broke in and stole the shoes. But he did say it could not have been Kent.
Mr. Friedberg said that Kent Anderson wasn't able to execute it himself because he was too obese to commit the burglary.
I tracked down one person who definitely believed Kent could have been involved in all this: his own son.
My comment as a son, you're a fool if you think my father didn't set it up and was the mastermind behind it. Any major crime like that in Minnesota, somehow my father had his fingers in it. And I'm pretty sure what happened was Kent told the guy, hey, there's these slippers, there's these rubies, we can go ahead, rip out the slippers. He says, I'll fence them.
Connecting Kent to this case would prove difficult for one good reason.
Nobody could speak with Mr. Anderson because he was deceased as of 2007. Friedberg was released after the interview. The ruby slippers were taken into custody.
Every spoke in this will had to work, and one of the undercovers asked me if I was excited. Well, of course. There's still that nagging question of, are they the authentic ruby slippers?
The insurance agents in the room that day thought the slippers looked legit, but the FBI had to be sure.
We were working a flight from Minneapolis to Washington, D.C. I noticed there were two FBI agents pre-boarded the flight carrying a box. They were holding onto it for dear life. They put it in the middle seat. One of the agents on the window seat, the other one was on the aisle seat, and they had a seatbelt over it. My coworker, she kept asking me, what do you think was on the box? They kept teasing us, saying, watch the news, watch the news. So a couple of weeks later, I learned that the sleepers were being transported to the Smithsonian. I didn't even know I was transporting a huge piece of American history.
Have you seen the movie?
No,
You haven't seen The Wizard of Oz?
no. I heard about it, so it made me feel good because I'm part of history.
When I first got word that the FBI was bringing in this recovered pair for us to take a look at, it was shock and amazement. I had followed the case for so long.
I am an objects conservator at the National Museum of American History. I've worked on entertainment collections from C-3PO and R2-D2 to the ruby slippers. The FBI agents, when they entered the lab and they're carrying this box, everyone's a little bit quiet because I think there's this moment of unknown. So we open it, and immediately I could see the shoes, and I could tell there was something special. I see a clear bead that has been painted red. And it was this sort of eureka moment because I remember seeing those on the shoes in the museum's collection. We had spent time talking with costumers, and they said that if the bead had come off during the filming, and if they didn't have time to go get a new red bead, well, it would be fine. They would get a clear bead painted red, and that was sort of the moment where I said, yes, these shoes, not only are they the same materials or the same construction, but they actually have the same repairs and flaws. And so everyone just sort of just kind of relaxes and starts celebrating about just this momentous occasion.
We were all sort of sworn not to mention this. I couldn't even tell my wife that I was involved in it.
The shoes that the FBI had recovered were actually the reciprocal matches to our pairs. Our right went with their left, our left went with their right. The shoes were likely switched at some point. After the FBI said, we're gonna go public,
Good afternoon, everyone. We're here today to share with you the recovery of one of the most significant and cherished pieces of movie memorabilia in American history. Dorothy's ruby slippers from the 1939 movie, The Wizard of Oz. Working very collaborative with our local partners in Grand Rapids, we received a new tip and some information that we diligently pursued, only to later lead this summer to the recovery of these slippers.
We're not going yet, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's like they did it all, which kind of takes me off a little bit. It wasn't. We went to them for help. It was our, it was our information. Is it over?
Bailey was born to
Maybe not. No. I don't. I don't know.
I really felt for these guys. 13 years they worked on this for what now just felt like an honorable mention.
It's kind of like in the movies, how it all comes down. The FBI shows up, you're pushed out of the way. So it was just a natural reaction for me to sit there and wonder why.
The reality of this investigation is, it's like a baseball game. Hey, we get everyone on base. FBI hits the home run and wins the World Series.
I had two representatives from the FBI that came over, two wonderful women that could tell me only about as much as they knew, except for the, for the fact that the shoes were in their hands, they were safe. My jaw just dropped. And the only thing I could say was, what? And they said, we have the shoes. I mean, you have to imagine, folks, I waited 13 years to hear those 4 words, we found your shoes. I mean, thank God the shoes were not destroyed. But heaven only knows how many feet went into that pair of shoes between then and 13 years later now.
Our staff was just giggling and greeting people that day. The theft and the recovery are the biggest news that's ever been generated for Grand Rapids, by far.
So the slippers are back, but who actually stole the shoes?
Now that we have them, where do we go from here?
So by the end of 2018, the shoes were safe, sitting inside an evidence locker at the FBI. We thought we knew some of the players, including the alleged mastermind behind it, Kent Anderson, but not who actually stole the shoes or who had them for all these years.
As far as Grand Rapids Police, I mean, where are you guys at right now?
We've ramped down our part of the investigation, but I want someone held accountable. The FBI is looking at records, phone records, stuff like that. Who was communicating at the time during the build-up to the recovery? Who knows where this is going to lead? Because there's a thought that organized crime could be involved in this as well.
It's not long after the return of the shoes that Sergeant Stein tells our team to read a book called The Rockwell Heist.
For me, when I read that book, they both went down the same way. They reeked identical. You couldn't get it any closer. I don't believe in coincidence like that, you know?
This is how I met Bonnie Lindbergh and learned about what was originally Minnesota's biggest art heist. And I wondered if the two crimes, decades apart and less than 200 miles apart, could have been committed by the same thieves.
Our gallery was in St. Louis Park, which is just the first suburb west of Minneapolis. On February 16th, 1978, we hosted an opening featuring the work of Norman Rockwell near his birthday in February. We had a complete collection of his 332 Saturday Evening Post covers. We had limited editions, but we also had original Norman Rockwell paintings. So we had a lovely evening, we had lots of people, it was wonderful, and about midnight I received a call from Elaine, and she said, "They're gone." And I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "The paintings have been stolen."
In the dark of early morning, the thieves made their way directly to the Norman Rockwell display, quickly took the 7 most valuable Rockwell originals. They also took an untitled Renoir valued at $125,000.
At some point, they discovered the alleged Renoir was actually a fake, but at the time of the theft, back in 1978, the value of these paintings was at least $500,000.
There was an incident the day before the theft where 3 gentlemen came into the gallery.
They were more interested in door casings and the doors and just casing the joint, really.
Most of the Rockwell paintings were eventually tracked down in Brazil more than 20 years later, where a gallery owner thought he'd bought them legally. A couple others were found in Philadelphia.
I'm happy to report all of the paintings are back in the hands of the original owners.
No one was ever arrested or charged in the case, and while it was unclear who stole the Rockwells, the journalist who wrote the Rockwell heist book said a source told him that Kent Anderson was involved.
If you wanted a theft committed or a crime committed and you were out of town, there were a certain group of individuals who you would hire to do it. One was Kent Anderson.
I asked Kent's son whether he knew if his dad was involved in the Rockwell heist.
He set it all up. We were driving by there one time, and he told me that him and his guys hit that place.
If Kent Anderson did play a role in the Rockwell heist, the truth died with him in 2007. He was never charged, and it's unclear how serious the FBI was about him as a suspect. But someone else's name came up in all this too, Joe Friedberg, the attorney who returned the slippers. He was a young lawyer back then, and he'd been asked to help return the Rockwell paintings too. But he declined after an oversight board for lawyers told him he could be risking a felony charge. So what was different this time? No idea.
Do you believe in coincidences?
I believe in coincidences, but there seem to be a lot of coincidences with these 2 particular cases. There is more to this operation than I think anybody realizes. Would you agree?
I absolutely agree now. When we were first doing the investigation, we focused heavily on the local. And there's got to be a connection there. Because most people don't do a smash and grab unless they know they can get away with it.
It turns out Sergeant Stein was right. The thief himself lived in Grand Rapids all along.
The FBI immediately started to gather data and analyze data. They started to put together phone records, and they began with Mr. Friedberg's phone.
Investigating who he was talking to before and after the return of the slippers is how authorities say they found the thief. Keep in mind at this point, it had been almost 20 years since they'd been stolen. I don't know what I expected the thief to look like, but the man I saw was not it.
I don't have a mugshot, but here's a picture of him outside the courthouse looking old as f.
That's one way to say it.
It's the deathbed confession from a dying mobster who's decided to set the record straight. Terry John Martin is admitting he stole the shoes from the Judy Garland Museum in Grand Rapids, Minnesota. It was his last big score after a life of crime.
Terry Martin was living in the Grand Rapids area at the time of the theft. He had participated in other thefts or heists in his life, so this wouldn't have been his first criminal conviction by any means.
In all seriousness, Martin was suffering from COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, at the time authorities connected him to the theft.
We started asking around town. No one knows him. It was really disappointing to me that someone here did it. I was really bummed.
This was an evil thing. It was an evil thing done for money. And wasn't done for love or to make somebody happy. It was done for money.
Terry Martin and Kent Anderson were literally thick as thieves. Anderson's son told me that they worked jobs together. Authorities were able to execute a search warrant on Terry Martin's home and found good reason to believe he was involved.
This warrant at the Martin residence had to do with his wife's immigration status. Mr. Martin's wife was asked if she knew anything about a significant event that occurred at the Judy Garland Museum in 2005. And she immediately said, "The slippers, is that what this is about?" She said he would cooperate with law enforcement and talk about his role with the ruby slippers theft if we could assure him that we would not prosecute his wife for immigration crimes. Terry Martin said that he had cased the Judy Garland Museum. He said that he brought a sledge, like a handheld sledgehammer. He used that to break the window in the rear door of the museum. Opened the door, let himself in. He said that he went straight to the plexiglass case where the ruby slippers were held. Grabbed the slippers, ran out. He said the whole thing took 30 seconds. And then sped away. Martin said that he threw the hammer in a field and that he went home and put the ruby slippers in a bag and hid them on part of his property. He claims that he brought them to Kent Anderson to fence them, and that upon showing them to Kent, Terry Martin said that was the first time he realized that there weren't actual rubies in the ruby slippers. Terry Martin was indicted on one count of theft of an object of cultural heritage. He pled guilty to that charge. Mr. Martin was sentenced to time served, 1 year of supervised release, and then he was ordered to pay approximately $23,000 of restitution.
He admitted his guilt, so I think he wanted to take responsibility and move on with his life, what little life he has left. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Have a great day.
He said that he acted alone. We were skeptical of various parts of Terry Martin's explanation of what happened. I'm not aware of any evidence linking Kent Anderson to the theft.
Did it seem maybe convenient to anybody that he was pointing to a dead man as being the one who orchestrated this theft?
It seemed extremely convenient to the FBI.
What I wanted to know was if Kent Anderson wasn't in on this and didn't have the shoes all these years, who did? Keeping our mouths shut about that original search warrant no one was supposed to see was about to pay off in terms of this one last scoop.
One of the reasons I want to talk to you today is so that there is a corrected version of what happened in the public record. It appears to us, meaning the prosecution and the investigators, that the Kent Anderson story was fabricated to deceive law enforcement and dissuade them from doing a further investigation. Ultimately, we learned that Terry Martin stole the ruby slippers with help from Jerry Soliderman.
A second man has now been charged in connection with theft of the Wizard of Oz ruby slippers from a Minnesota museum.
And here we have another guy with an oxygen tank.
The indictment also says Soliderman threatened to release a sex tape of a woman and, quote, take her down with him, end quote, if she didn't keep her mouth shut about the slippers.
This whole story is just bananas and keeps getting weirder and weirder.
Like Terry Martin, Jerry Soliderman was a known thief. He was also a fence operating in stolen goods for decades in Minnesota.
Terry Martin and Jerry Soliderman had cased the Judy Garland Museum. Well, we know that both Terry Martin and Jerry Soliderman went to the museum together in Terry Martin's van, and they left together. Terry Martin was driving, so he gave the ruby slippers to Jerry Soliderman, who said that these aren't rubies. He could see that the sequins were threaded, so they weren't actual gemstones. We knew that Soliderman was with Martin because we were eventually able to track down a traffic stop. and they were pulled over because Terry Martin was speeding so fast to get away from the burglary. Slitterman had the ruby slippers in his pants at the time that they were stopped.
You got to be kidding. In his pants, was he specific about where in his pants?
The officer tried to search the van, and we don't even know if he was aware of the burglary yet. Terry Martin would not voluntarily consent, and there must not have been probable cause. Had the officer found the ruby slippers, the case would have been over right then and there. We had a lighthearted moment in an interview with Mr. Slitterman where he acknowledged as much. We found a baby bottle sterilizer, and we were told that that was used to try to destroy DNA evidence. It had some red flecks in it that were consistent with the sequins on the ruby slippers. The FBI labs determined that it's the same type of material as the sequins.
He agreed to plead guilty, but that never happened. Like Terry Martin, Jerry Slitterman was ill at the end of his life, and even though people might have thought that oxygen tank was a sympathy play, and hey, maybe it worked for Terry Martin who got off easy, it wasn't. He died in 2025.
Jerry Slitterman possessed the ruby slippers from the time of the theft until July 7th, 2018.
That's the entire time they were missing until Joe Friedberg brought them back hoping for the reward money. So where did Slitterman keep them? Good question. An even better answer.
We're actually probably about 15 minutes from downtown Minneapolis as the crow flies. My next door neighbors live right over there.
Jerry Winker's neighbors were the Slittermans.
Jerry was a great guy. He was just a genuine, nice guy. Jerry would be like working on his garden, and he came up to me one day and said, you know, someone's been stealing my vegetables. Is there any chance that I can put up a security system? And I'm like, yeah, sure, that's fine with me. My wife and I thought it was really odd.
It wasn't the vegetables he wanted to watch.
In the movie, they say there's no place like home. Well, I've lived here since 1992, and right on the other side of the fence is where the ruby slippers were buried for 7 years. I mean, I tell my friends at work, and they're just like, what?
Jerry Slitterman described to us how he stored the slippers. He put them in his garage in the soffit, like the eaves overhanging the outside of his garage for years, and then later buries them in his yard. He buried them in a clear Tupperware type container.
I mean, we do get a lot of rain and snow up here, so thank goodness he put them in something like that. Authorities got warrants to search Slitterman's house, and he was sitting on a lot more stolen items than just the slippers.
Came in with the bolt cutters, cut open the locks, and just article after article. I mean, brass art, paintings, furs, fancy rugs. It just kept coming out.
It is a miracle that these iconic shoes survived these two knuckleheads.
As for all the other characters in this story, Michael Insabella, the Secret Service agent turned tipster, died 4 years after the slippers were returned, and he was never charged with any wrongdoing. Joe Friedberg, the attorney and middleman who returned the shoes, died as well. He was never charged with a crime either. He had just one thing to say on the record about the theft, and to this day, I think I'm the only one in the media he ever talked to about his role in the case.
And I maintain the fact I did absolutely nothing wrong. In fact, I thought that I was doing everything perfectly right.
Whether it's organized crime or the mafia, is there any truth to that?
It does strike me as an opportunistic crime. It just seems at odds with somebody with the mob or the organized crime was pulling the strings.
With the investigation winding down, the FBI wanted to return the shoes to Michael Shaw. The insurance company technically owned the slippers, but allowed Michael Shaw to buy them back for about $800,000, the amount that they had paid out after the theft. Shaw's relationship with the Judy Garland Museum had not thawed since that very fateful night back in August of 2005.
Over those 13 years, Michael and I didn't talk at all. We probably should have, and then rumors on either end started and miscommunication.
With John Kelsch deciding to take over as curator, it was up to the museum's new director to make a plan to set things right.
The FBI told me that the slippers were going to be returned to Michael. And I had actually said, I think it would be very poetic ending if we could return the slippers to Michael. I thought that would be a nice way for us to bury the hatchet.
It had been years since I interviewed Michael Shaw.
What's it gonna be like when you lay your eyes on these shoes again?
God. It'll be Mardi Gras, party, Happy New Year, everything rolled into one for me.
I was excited for him because his dream of getting the slippers back was going to come true. He was now in his late 80s.
They're in very good shape. How do I feel? It's like welcoming back an old friend that I haven't seen in years.
We want to formally return your shoes to you. And we thought it was fitting that we do it here in the museum where they were stolen.
But thanks to you, they're back.
You know, it was a great joint effort between us and Grand Rapids Police Department.
And I went and gave him a big hug. Michael Shaw started to cry. I cried. It was emotional.
Michael Shaw took his traveling shoes on one last world tour before he decided to sell them at an auction.
Stand down, sir. You okay?
He's ready.
I know. He's ready to take me down. That's why I didn't want to touch him.
I think he knows they're a pretty big liability to have because of their value. He's getting older. He's just ready to move on.
Randy Struthers knows a little bit about the challenges of owning a piece of Oz.
So you have to think about, keeping it secure, camera system, insurance, and all of that. In 2016, 2017, I became aware of a woman who thought she may have Glinda's wand.
Glinda the Good Witch was always my favorite character in the film. As a kid, I wanted that dress and that wand.
I was able to offer her $20,000 for it. But the thing is, keeping something that historically important and expensive, I did not really plan for that, and I just could not afford to keep it long term. Ended up selling for $400,000.
The new owner found a big way to show it off, capitalizing on Wicked fever at the end of 2024.
Two singing superstars heading to the big screen in a movie adaptation of the hit Broadway musical, Wicked.
I'm glad to say that same wand was just on the Drew Barrymore show.
Ariana Grande, who played the new Glinda the Good Witch, was on the show.
It was presented to Ariana Grande to hold during her interview. So that was something nice. Like, I have a connection to Ariana Grande that she knows nothing about and probably never will.
Thank you guys, it's been fun.
Everybody wondered how much Shaw's pair of shoes would sell for, because even before they were notorious, they were special. One of his slippers and one of the Smithsonian's, because remember they were mismatched, were part of what's dubbed the #1 pair.
Those are going to be Judy Garland's primary set. The #1 pair you're going to find in a couple of the close-up scenes when Dorothy taps her heels together at the end of the film.
Tap your heels together 3 times
That's also the #1 pair.
and think to yourself, there's no place like home.
It's the most famous pair of ruby slippers that will ever be sold. So I think there'll be a lot of people, interested in buying this pair over any other just because of the mystery around them.
Even back in 2018, people thought the shoes would go for millions.
The shoes are worth probably a couple $1 million.
We would sell them for $5 million plus.
How much do you think they're worth, Andy?
I wouldn't let those babies go for anything less than $10 million. I mean, you can dress them up or dress them down, and the sensible heel makes your calves look amazing.
Well, we'll be there when the slippers go on the block, December 7th. They belong in Judy Garland's birthplace. Where else?
The governor tweeted that we're getting the damn slippers.
As of now, the Judy Garland Museum is hoping to actually be the highest bidder to win them back for good.
John and Janie were pretty tight-lipped about how much they had raised for bidding. Tight-lipped, as in they wouldn't tell me.
We're nervous. We don't know what to expect. To bring the ruby slippers back to Grand Rapids, Minnesota would be remarkable.
They do get them back. They go to another agent to insure them.
I will never forget stepping into the auction house and getting my first look at those slippers. They were stunning. Every detail, every imperfection, down to the painted glass bead, was there.
These are the most important film artifacts of all time. The tsunami of interest and excitement is coming to a crest today. We're gonna find out what these things sell for.
For the rest of my life, I will remember the day the slippers made history all over again.
Ladies and gentlemen, these are the Screen Match Ruby Slippers, lot 182. Let's open the bid at
$1,550,000.
We were some of the only people allowed to film the auction, but we had strict instructions that we could not show any of the bidders other than John and Janie. Bids could come in on the phone, in person, online, or by fax. Fax.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the big lot. This is the crescendo, right? These are the Screen Match Ruby Slippers, lot 182. Let's open the bid at
$1,550,000.
$1,550,000. Now to go to 1.6. Now to go to 1 point. What do you have? Okay, that's a nice start. 2 million, 2.1, 2.3, 2.3, 2.4. 6 million, $7 million, $8 million.
I can't even tell you what this was like. People were dropping $1 million bids like it was no big deal.
$10 million. All right, well, that's a way to go. So I've got the $11 million. $11 million. $12 million. A dozen eggs, dozen million. $15 million. You want to go to
So John and Janie were not even able to bid by this point. I mean, $15 million.
You want to just count by millions? It's fine with me.
Actually,
16 million.
now it's 16.
Type it in.
And now it was just a matter of how high they'd go for.
$17 million. 19 million here. $20 million. Well, that'll fix your wagon. 22 million. 23 million. 24 million. I'm at 24 million. 25 million. Now to go to 25.2. $26 million. Now to go to 26.2. What do you think? 26,200,000 is all I need. I say that tongue in cheek. Fair warning then, at $26 million. Anybody else? Anyone else? Then 26.2. $27 million. Just wait till the last minute, that's okay. 27 million. 28 million. Now to go to 28.2. I'll take a cut bid at 28.1 if you want to save 100 grand. Any other bids? All bids in now, all bids. Fair warning, no cut bids, no other advances. Then do it, $28 million. Ladies and gentlemen, the Ruby Slippers just sold for $28 million.
The hammer price for these slippers was $28 million. The previous world record was the Marilyn Monroe subway dress that sold for $5.52 million in the Debbie Reynolds sale in 2011. And this just absolutely shattered that record.
Let's put this in perspective. For $28 million, you could buy the same private jet as David Beckham. You could rocket into space more than a dozen times, or you could snag 4.5 of those bananas taped to the wall. Let me tell you a little secret. You know how much the slippers cost to make? $15. After the auction, I had one question. Can you tell me who bought the shoes?
Oh, I cannot, unfortunately. Unless the buyer indeed wants his name to be known.
It was emotional. Like, I was shaking. I think everybody in the room just was shocked. These shoes have been on a really long journey, and whoever got them wanted them very, very badly. We gave it our best shot. $28 million is beyond anything we could have ever raised.
The museum didn't go home empty-handed. They did get themselves a very nice pair of slippers, after all.
All right, folks, the sale's almost a wrap. The Bill Mack painting, The Wizard of Oz ruby slippers.
Something came over me with this Bill Mack painting. He's from Minnesota. And I just had a feeling, I was like, we need it, and we can't go home empty-handed. So I don't know, I just raised my hand.
Fair warning, anybody else? 20,000, you got it, sister. Who gets that? Bidder number 100. I'm gonna give you applause. Awesome.
The slippers are coming back to Minnesota in a painting.
There's no place like home.
There's no place like home.
And we love Judy! Today in Grand Rapids, the festival is back in full swing. And the slippers are back on display. Sort of. The guy with the buttons is back.
Judy Garland Festival is, to me, is remembering the greatest entertainer that ever lived.
And we found this fashion icon.
Well, we've started a small ruby slipper theft exhibit now. It's just continued to make it solid on the map. Grand Rapids, Minnesota, birthplace of Judy Garland. It's just made that more upfront even than nothing could have, really.
We caught up with investigator Matson at the Who Stole the Ruby Slippers dinner party.
Guys like me, we don't get to work on cases like this. Like, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So to be a part of that was just a lot of fun. It always was and still is the Grand Rapids Police Department's case.
But it was time to give credit where credit was due.
The FBI, had they not been there, we might not have had a recovery.
As for Bob Stein, he retired.
So here I am, older, heavier, and bearded. I always told the guys that, hey, the job's never done till we find them slippers. And I didn't think in my lifetime we would find them. I feel exonerated because there is a local person. Because everyone told me, nah, they came up from the cities, there's no way, there's nobody here. Everyone has different opinions. Now I go, see, I told you it had to be someone connected to the area. There was a lot of bad stuff that came from this. People accusing each other, friendships lost, families. Look what Kelsch went through. Look what the museum went through. And I think it caused problems with people's faith in our department, too, to solve the crime about just a silly old pair of slippers. Well, the slippers weren't silly. They meant a lot to a lot of people. And they believed in the slippers, and they gave them hope, right? I still remember one particular older lady when I was still working. She was almost in tears or maybe crying a little bit when the shoes were recovered because it meant so much to her as a little girl.
The truth is that it isn't just the slippers that mean a lot to people. It's the movie itself. It's the experience. It's the music and the lines, and it still draws an audience today. And I think it always will, because there's no place like home. And that's what this movie reminds people of. Home.